that's where it's. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm at peace. Just get me the microphone, and you'll know I'm still me.
And now we got you
I'm tuning
amplified,
up.
so for real, you're gonna get it. And you set the recording location? Bow, bow. All right, while he's doing that, I'm going to say a prayer. Is that all right?
Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
God, thank you for the opportunity to gather. Thank you for the place to do it. Thank you, everyone in this room. And just thank you for giving us another day sober, another day on mission, another day with purpose. And just we surrender this time to your care and control. And we trust that it will find the ears that need to hear it and the eyes that need to see it. We thank you. We love you. We bless you. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you.
Amen.
We're rolling.
Rolling.
Everything's going. We're streaming.
Is Leslie still on?
Stream duty.
Yeah.
Are you live streaming? If I knew, I would have shared.
We live stream it on YouTube.
Okay.
Just as like a way for Leslie to do quality control and make sure I don't say anything crazy. Cut the stream. No. Yeah, but we were doing live on Facebook and then just the number, like it's just hard to peek through, you know, the noise. And so the live is like not very engaged. So we go live on YouTube and then it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
As long as one of us don't say something crazy, we just leave it up.
And then we also have StreamYard. I think you could like multiple platforms at once. So
Yeah.
Facebook, YouTube, all of them
Yeah.
at once.
This will let us do 2 platforms.
Okay.
We did. We were getting a movement on Reddit for a little while.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Reddit
that
was some good.
They gave some
action
good
there.
feedback, but it didn't last too long.
There's people on TikTok. They're just doing their dishes.
Yeah.
2 hours, 1,300 people watching.
Wow.
You're like, whoa, what happened to this society, dude? What are you doing? What are we doing?
They're like waiting for something. Like, okay, now she's gonna put it in the dishwasher.
Yeah. Is she gonna get that stain off?
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
like that
She might need a
circle.
little elbow
That's not
grease.
wax on, wax off, right there.
Right. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Most High Show. We are doing this live tonight, Friday night, every Friday night. We are live in Woodstock, really North Alpharetta, at Vision Warriors Church. We set up the studio, and to kick things off, we have 2 very special guests in the seats of service.
Yes.
Traveling from the west side, the fresh side.
You're biased though.
We got
You're
brother
west side.
Mike and
Man, Mike.
sister Andrea is here with us. And of course, David is here co-hosting. Kale's on the 1s and 2s. Leslie's doing quality control. And there is actually a group of people here watching us.
We got an audience, bro.
Thank you.
for being here.
Yeah.
Kale, you need like an applause and a laugh thing to put up whenever we.
You need some
Yeah.
sound bites.
This is so loud to me.
And, you know, we're amplified, so it feels a little weird, but it's good. You know, we've had Mike on the show a couple times. We had Andrea on the show before. And really just, I think, aligned. I think we're all moving in the same direction. We're trying to educate. We're trying to inspire.
Yep.
We're trying to do what we can do to help, because there are a lot of people out there sick and suffering, and they need our voice. And so we didn't come up with an outline because we figured that, you know, we're all kind of in the same sea doing the same thing. So, but what I'd like to kick off with is, ladies first, I'd like for you just to tell me a little bit about you, Andrea, and why you started and kind of began this Facing Fentanyl movement.
Sure. Well, first I have to tell you what an honor it is to be here tonight on your first night, especially, you know, in this new space. We love you guys. We follow everything that you do, and so thanks for having us tonight.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In 2018, I lost my daughter, Ashley, to a counterfeit pill. Half a pill took her life. And I got this call on June 11th, early in the morning, telling me that my daughter had taken something and she was gone. And that didn't make any sense to me at all. How do you take a pill and it kills you? Everyone's taken a pill. So, you know, I rushed into town looking for her, and I was wondering, what have you done that somebody would say this about you, or who who would make this up? And in fact, it was true, and she was gone. So I immediately started working to educate people and to warn them about this drug, fentanyl. I had never heard of it before.
Yeah.
And no one I knew had heard of it. And again, that was in 2018. And then as soon after, I found out that Ashley was one of many that had died from this drug from one distributor in my town. He was the only one there at the time distributing fentanyl. You know, now there's hundreds.
Yeah.
But why weren't we hearing about this? So I started an organization called Voices for Awareness and really just delved into this crisis and learned about fentanyl. So, you know, I'm very much like many families out there that didn't know about fentanyl, and we've become experts now. It's our life's work. And the bad part is that we had to lose a child to know that this happened, or someone dear to us that we love. So there are many of me out there, right, that moved this to the forefront, to the news. And sadly, in 5 years, people are talking about it now. It's on the news. Some news channels every day, some news channels once in a while. But so many more people are dying. And we're working our asses off, really, to make a change here. But we're losing so many people. And so last year we started Project Facing Fentanyl to build this National Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day in August. So all these families, if they didn't have organizations, they could, you know, join with us that have these awareness education outlets and come together in force in one day each year. Not that we don't do this every day, but it's a loud, loud day for us. And we have our federal partners backing us and CDC, people across America. And this year we were, the Senate unanimously signed a resolution to put this day, you know, we observe this day now and moving forward. So that's very important to me. And then started working with Mike about a year ago, people in the recovery community, to share our message and build our army and show a complete circle of what's going on.
Yeah. How did you two meet, Mike?
Andrea has a nephew that would follow me on TikTok. And for months, he's like, you know, you got to meet my aunt. She's doing all these things. I get these messages all the time. So for months, you know, not hearing nothing. And then I actually had a conversation with Andrea, you know, FaceTime. And from that moment, I was sending her videos every day. You know, this is when I was making them every day and then sending them to Andrea. And she couldn't load them on her phone. And then finally, it came to the National Day. And she brought me down she flew me down to speak and bring the recovery community's perspective on this, you know, on fentanyl. And then from there, we've been inseparable. And, you know, she's become more than just a business partner or friend. She's like my mother now.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's such a great partnership because, and I like the way you articulate it, right? It's like this bridge between the recovery community and these families affected. Right?
Perfect match.
And leveraging us, the recovery community, because we're your allies, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about?
Sure. It was important, I guess, to bring the two because, you know, being in recovery, I got family members I still don't get along with, right? And the stigmas that are living in society, they exist because we're feeding them. We're feeding them because we believe them, and you know we're abiding by them. Andrea and I actually working together is actually breaking that stigma because it's also now showing the value of somebody like us. Because we're not calling it a war on drugs because, you know, it's not a war on drugs at this point. It's a fight to save lives. So, you know, the lives that are being saved, they need to understand the, you know, the devastation that fentanyl is and that it's not a drug. And the only people that could actually give it to them in the words where they could feel it and understand it is someone who actually did drugs for, you know, we're considered experts in that field, right? So just being able to bring the two perspectives and, you know, the pain of losing a child and then the pain of living a life of addiction together, both those pains became one purpose, which became a beautiful thing.
Yeah. One of the first big talking points that you came, I think I really heard it first from you two, right? is delineating this an overdose and a poisoning,
Yes.
right? And so, which one of you wants to tackle that?
Well, I think that if I could tell you how many people call me up and ask if Mike can make a video for them about breaking down poisoning, so I
guess
think
it's
he
gonna
should
be me.
probably.
I guess for me and Coach. So the definition of overdose means the excessive use of drugs. Ashley took a half a pill. That's not an excessive use of drugs. Plus, at the same time, by using the word overdose, we're giving the wrong misconception to kids in society. What kid that's going to want to try for the first time think they're going to overdose on one pill? Also, I think overdose was made for heroin addicts because there was a certain amount of heroin you could do and not die. You had to overdo that amount in order to die. So there is a safe dose then of heroin if you're doing it there is no safe dose when it comes to fentanyl. Either you're dead or you're addicted, right? It's 50 to 100 times stronger than anything we ever seen on the street. By saying overdose, we're giving society, I think, the misconception that it's a drug addict's problem.
Yeah.
When people that are dying are more than just addicts. That's why it's not a drug. That's why it is a poison, because these kids are going to buy Xanax, OxyContin, whatever it is, and they're being deceived. And how much poison does it take to kill you?
Yeah.
A little bit. So, that's why we want to push the narrative of poisoning, because I think society, the people that think it's just a drug addict problem, are now starting to listen to us because we're not approaching it as just a drug addict's problem. We're approaching it as society's problem because a life being lost every 5 minutes, 300 in a day. At this point, we feel it should be tackled as a national security risk with the amount of lives that are being lost as quickly as they're being lost.
Yeah.
I think 200 a day in 2022. 200 people died of fentanyl a day for the whole year 2022.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Just fentanyl.
Just fentanyl.
Just fentanyl.
Or they would say synthetic opioids, but I'm sure methadone and wasn't
Probably
too
not
high
that.
on that list.
Yeah, I never heard of anybody overdose. I mean, I was on methadone for
Yeah.
12
So
years.
when
Sometimes I took 300 milligrams in a day, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's so funny that my sister died of a fentanyl overdose in 2015. And when I first heard that what she died of, I remember taking fentanyl, right? But not what this is. It was like legit from the hospital fentanyl. I would take it. And from what I understand, like I've never tried anything pressed or what they call fentanyl on the streets. But it's like there's so much education to this because they're not really the same thing.
No.
I mean, these people are thinking that they're taking a Xanax or something like that, and these kids and overdosing is the wrongest thing to say. It's totally not an overdose because overdose is when you do too much dope and you have a habit and you did too much. That's not what's happening to a lot of this population. They don't even know. They're being tricked into it, you know what I mean?
Well, and we see in the media a lot of times when you're watching the news and they're showing those graphics of prescription fentanyl, and it's confusing to the public.
Yeah,
And if it's not your problem, then you're not paying attention.
right.
So, and you think that's what they're talking about. We're talking about illicit fentanyl that's made to deceive and to addict. It's a totally different thing. And we get a lot of communication like that too. People email us and say, why are you trying to take our drugs from us? We're not
Yeah.
talking about your prescription medications.
Right.
No,
We're
it's
not in that
absolutely not
circle.
that.
Yeah.
We're talking about this deceptive poison that's killing hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah. We talked a little bit before the show, and I was mentioning Sam Quinones, right, the author. He did a book on meth, was his first book, and then the second one was talking about the opioids. And he talks about how it's so much easier for whoever's doing it in Mexico because they can do it in a warehouse, right, which is what they did with meth. So they started making a meth that was minus the ephedrine, right, which is, when I was doing meth, it had ephedrine in it, right? But they made this, they figured out a way to create methamphetamines that didn't have that ephedrine in it, which is hard to get, right? And so they're doing the same thing with fentanyl because in a warehouse they can produce massive amounts of it for very little. It's really easy to get the chemicals through the ports in Mexico. And as they are able to create all of this, then they press it into pills, and then they just ship it out here, right?
It's limitless. You
It's
know, no
limitless.
poppy field,
You're
no
right.
army to guard it,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
tending the garden. It
Yeah.
is, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it.
Right.
Unlimited
so it's like
possibilities.
It's almost like where there's so much of it that's why people are getting it, right? It's not that there was
Right.
ever really a demand for it. It's hard probably now to even get like drugs that don't have fentanyl in it
Yeah.
if you're buying them illegally on
Oh,
the street.
if you're buying it from the street, I would imagine there's a high percentage risk that if you think you're getting like something like a Percocet or like a Xanax from the street, it's probably pressed.
I mean, DEA just came out, 7 out of 10 on the street are contain a lethal dose to kill
Yeah.
someone. So that's
Whoa.
70%. And most of the drugs that are being found is fentanyl with filler, right? So the definition of lace means the minority of. I believe in the beginning, drugs were laced with fentanyl to get you hooked, addicted, and the normal drug not doing what it needs to do. So now you need the fentanyl. I think it's the other way around now. I think it's fentanyl laced with whatever drug you think you're getting,
Right.
if you're even getting that in with the fentanyl.
Yeah.
Because they like, why you want to kill your clientele, right? Any large corporation takes losses. Amazon takes millions in losses. They don't go bankrupt because of their profit margin. The profit margin's so high with the fentanyl that they're not losing a customer. We were in Montana, and the pills are selling for $100 in Montana. That's costing them less than a penny to make. And I don't know about you guys. I sold drugs. I didn't care about your safety.
Right.
Your safety wasn't my concern. My concern was the money in my pocket and not to have withdrawal. To sort of expect that the cartel care about their customers
Right.
Yeah,
is,
right.
like, it's comical and
They
scary
wouldn't do
at the
that to
same time.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they care about me.
Yeah.
And then
They're looking out.
On the opposite side of that, you could, go out on the streets of Denver, Colorado, and buy one of these pills for $1. So, or online.
Yeah.
Like Mike was talking about, $100 in Montana.
Yeah.
Anything you want for as big or little amount, it's
Yeah.
out there.
And then when it's put in with like meth or cocaine, what I understand is that the way fentanyl or this kind of fentanyl, the way your body metabolizes it metabolizes it much quicker.
Yeah.
So you experience withdrawal quicker. Now you bought cocaine or you bought meth, and that's what you think you're getting. You don't know why you're using more of your dope if you don't die, right? But you use more, and you go back and buy more, right? So the off chance that you don't die, you're not understanding how you're experiencing withdrawal symptoms very quickly, and so you end up becoming a better customer, right? If you don't die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes. I'm glad you brought that up because, in my great state, they talk about partying safe. Let's party. Let's keep the party safe. And they're talking about fentanyl. Is there a safe dose of fentanyl? 2 milligrams is going to take your life,
That's a great
potentially deadly, or you're addicted from onset. How is any of that safe? How is any of that good?
Right.
Some of the ideas that we come up with are counterproductive. So when we're talking about prevention and education, is that really prevention? Is that really educating?
Yeah.
We really need to be thoughtful and think ahead before we put some of this information out.
Yeah. We interviewed a lady from the Georgia, what's it called, Kale? The Georgia Department Behavioral Health or something? Anyway, she's like a harm reduction lady. And we asked her about this because her whole thing is harm reduction, right? And we asked, because kind of like with harm reduction, things like testing strips, right? Narcan or, ask David, almost anything's harm reduction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she did a great job of articulating, which is so cool that we get to film these things because I'm like just a student learning. But she's talking about how we always look at harm reduction from these two extremes, right? And that her breakdown of it was like there's really just kind of like a gradient of what harm reduction is, right? And there's some that are more extreme versions of harm reduction, and then ideally there's some that are not as extreme versions of it.
You're buying cigarettes, you have to be 21 to buy cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
That's a harm reduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in the same philosophy of that just some sort of like
Barrier.
regulation, some sort of maintenance, some sort of like, you know, looking over it and
We think
monitoring
education
in some way.
is harm reduction.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, really, you know, the thing is, it's scary for young people, high school kids, which is where you guys are going and talking to high schools, right?
Yeah.
And I was a high schooler. I got high schoolers in my house right now. And they're not locked up in there or anything. I don't kidnap high schoolers.
Get them out.
I mean, like,
get them out of
they're
there.
my children, and I'm responsible for
They've
them.
been in there for.
But, like, you know, these kids don't know how to do anything responsibly, you know what I mean? Much less, like, here's a test strip. Make sure you test your drugs. I'm not, you know, to me, I wouldn't trust them to do that anyway, right? And then the pills, are they going to crush the pill and do the test strip so that
They're gonna have to waste a whole pill. But see, the whole thing with fentanyl is one pill could have nothing in it. Another pill that you bought could have enough to kill 5 in just half of it, right? So it's not like they're actually measuring this stuff out. Everything's getting thrown in a pot, pressing and throwing out. So you could take one pill and be fine. I could take half of one and kill me instantly. And, you know, just being an addict, I'm not testing my stuff. Not saying it's not a good tool to have in the toolbox. Have all the tools you need. But at the end of the day, there's many forms of ways of approaching this, right? So our form of harm reduction is in the prevention and the education piece.
I was just thinking like, if I would test it when I was using it, if I would test it,
it was hot?
I'd be like, oh,
Yeah, I might just be a little more
at that.
safe
That's
with
great.
it, but I'm not
That's a
throwing
great
it
hue
out.
of blue right there.
That's exact. You know, people ask all the time, why would you kill your customer? Well, you know, your dealer takes somebody out, and he's got a really long line that next day.
Yeah.
Because
that was
everybody
my
wants
thought process
that.
when I was
Yeah.
an addict, for real.
And
Yeah.
that's a very good point that you bring up with the test strips. But to, you know, put all the information out there. Yeah, there's a way to test, and there's a way to test responsibly. And if someone's going to do it, you know, great. That's another tool, like Michael said. But don't give people false hope that that's what's going to keep them alive.
Yeah, a
Educate
false sense
about
of
it.
security.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you use toolkit, right? Because that's, I think, what this lady used. It's about having all the tools, right, and whatever. Because when I first got exposed to Narcan years ago, you know, because I come from a 12-step kind of background, and so to me, my initial response to harm reduction was, well, it's all enabling, right? It was very black and white. And then when we met somebody who, Dave Laws, who was responsible for bringing a lot of Narcan into Georgia, and then also the Good Samaritan law, which is in Georgia, where if somebody overdoses in your presence in your home, you can call 911. They will come, they will revive that person, and they won't incriminate you, right? And so that's when I started getting exposed to what Narcan was. And then we did a Narcan distribution in Philadelphia, and what I realized is you can't recover if you're dead, right?
Very
so
true.
let's try to keep you alive so you have the opportunity, right, to get better. Because, I mean, there's 3 of us sitting here right now who we used to be bound by something with no arms and no legs, had complete control of us. And that's not the case anymore, right?
Amen.
And so hopefully people can, you know, get to that point of surrender or whatever it is that it takes for someone to go, okay, I'm ready to move on and start living, right?
Yeah, the reason we're so big on the prevention and education is because why people use drugs have not changed from when we went to it, right? The loss of identity, the people pleasing, the validation, the not fitting in. Those things have not changed. The only difference, the thing that has changed is we were able to make some bad choices, recover from it, and live a better life. These kids aren't going to be able to have a 20-year run, right? They're not going to be able to make these choices and then learn the right decision, because one choice could actually kill them. So it's not like we don't tell these kids don't do drugs because it's going to ruin your life. Like, we're actually, don't do them because you're going to die, right? Like, so the whole landscape, the whole drug landscape has changed. When I cut my drugs, I cut them with a weaker agent. I didn't cut it with a stronger agent. You know, like, the whole game is backwards,
that's
right? Like,
backwards,
it's all backwards. And, you know, I'm glad I got out when I got out, because I know if fentanyl was around when I was using, I would not be sitting here speaking to you gentlemen.
Yeah, this would just be an empty couch.
That's it. Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I think like a month after I stopped using cocaine, there was a flesh-eating bacteria in all the cocaine in Georgia, and I was like, dang, I got out just in time, dude. People were losing like parts of their face. I was like, yeah,
man.
I quit. I quit like right in a great moment. So what's next? Like what are, because you're showing up in schools, right? But I know you're also doing some stuff up in Washington and some things at a legislative level. Can you tell me about that work and what your hopes are with that?
You know, I wish that we were in schools every day. I wish that's where we could, those are the people that we could reach every day. So that's a really small part of what we do, actually. We are out there, you know, trying to spread prevention at the highest levels that we can, to reach as many people as we can. And recently, we've been working with Homeland Security. They've been giving us venues of people to talk with that, you know, have positions that can think ahead on some of the, you know, it's not going to stop with fentanyl, right? What's next? And we already know xylozine's hitting pretty hard. So these synthetic opioids and the way that this drug landscape has changed, we've really got to get ahead of this at some point. So we're reaching out to people like Ernst & Young and Thomas Reuters, and where there are security professionals or large numbers of people that can not only take this home to their families in the evening, but you know, think ahead and use their these great minds to hopefully build something for the future. So we're doing work with them, a lot of work with DEA, trying to get these youth summits going again after COVID. You know, we lost so many of these kids to social media, and that's a really hot topic right now in the fentanyl world, because we're losing so many young people to buying these drugs off of social media, Snapchat, and other apps like that. So reaching out to youth through these summits where we could bring large numbers in, hopefully looking for, you know, finding influencers. We need influencers. These kids will listen to these athletes and, you know, musicians that they look up to. So we're always desperately looking for influencers to talk about fentanyl.
Somebody step up. Be a spokesman for that.
We haven't heard that yet. We have it in little forms, but we really need some loud voices out there. So those are some of the things we do, and work on legislation, and just always out there running our mouths trying to get this message out. And I see a change now with the language like you were talking about. We see some of our federal partners using the word poisoning, Homeland Security. We were just with Merrick Garland at a family summit a couple weeks ago, and we saw that he was using the word poisoning, picking that up from the DEA.
That's good.
So we are hearing it out there, but again, the people are dying at exponential rates. So it's past time, and I'm now wondering when we're going to start opening up our eyes to what took us so long to get where some change is going to be made. We know that Homeland Security and the DOJ have come in the last couple of weeks, and they're going to start putting some sanctions on China, and some cartels, or, you know, big cartel chains are getting indicted. And these things make a difference, but we're flooded now, and now we have our addiction rates are skyrocketed, bigger than they've ever been before. What do we do now? We need everyone to sit at this table and come up with some solutions. And, you know, there's no right or wrong here. We need a lot of answers, and for a lot of people. Not just stopping the flood of fentanyl into the United States, because there'll be something else right behind it. Someone else to sell it. If we stop one, there'll be another. But we
it
have
has to be bigger than just putting up a blockade of sorts.
This is right.
You know what I mean?
And so no more Band-Aids.
Yeah.
We need to get to the core of this, and it should be a number one priority. We've passed that national security crisis with fentanyl and 100 other things out there, right? And the public health crisis. We're deep in it, and people are turning their head to it. And now we have a humanitarian crisis.
Yeah.
You know,
What
I
do we
think it's just frustrating to me, and that's why, that's another reason why I'm so happy that you guys are here, not just being able to see you guys again and talk with you, but it's just, I believe we live in a world right now where everything just trends. It's almost like what's next. I'm glad that, we're putting it out there and you guys are going around and doing things consistently and hitting different avenues and different audiences, because that's important, because, regardless of what it is nowadays, it just fades away. Like a big topic now is what's going on in the Middle East. 2 weeks from now, it's just going to fade, man.
Yeah. Influencers like to talk about that.
Yeah.
I really don't care what The Rock has to say about
Yeah.
Israel. I love you, but maybe you could talk about something that could be helpful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like than your political information. We don't go to you for that, dog. I go to you for workout videos. And
He's a
action
beast.
movies,
He does that. That boy can do that.
I do not need to know
He's
what
good.
you think about the Middle East.
With his eyebrow up.
Yeah, we need the people's elbow on the fentanyl. That's what we need.
Yeah.
So, Mike, talk to me a little bit about your journey, right? Because,
Yeah, Mike, tell us.
tell us.
What's been going on with you, man?
He's very
Tell us
shy.
about you.
I hope he can take it.
Yeah, because I want people to hear, your story, and because what you're doing now is amazing, and I think uniquely fits you. But it's a gift, it's a talent that you're living in now. That so many of us have a gift and a talent that a lot of addicts I know are gifted and talented, and that's what I really want to know is like when you found this and using it for a greater purpose, right? And how that reflected in your drug use.
Yeah, sure. So my journey, real quick, 20 years active addiction, 12 years on methadone, as high as 120 milligrams. I lost both my parents to AIDS from heroin use, 2 grandmothers to alcoholism, a grandfather to heroin, uncle to heroin. So I could identify with the loss of what drugs could do. As far as my journey, first and foremost, I got to give praise to God.
Yeah,
He will make all things together for good. The lived experience us addicts in recovery provide to society is more than just knowledge of drugs. It's overcoming a mental illness, right? Because that's what addiction is to me. It's a mental illness. Not only do we overcome it, we're able to prosper after it. I honestly, firmly believe that addicts were chosen. We're not forsaken. We're chosen for the... Originally going, God was like, no, we're going to stop it there for a second, and let me just reroute you.
It was you when you gave
And
glory to
go.
God. It was the system went.
Yeah.
How many times does that happen, though?
What?
I mean, I can tell you that's happened to me numerous times.
Really?
As soon
Oh,
as
yeah.
you start talking that God talk, then why is his lights? Hello? Hello?
I saw
That happens
a
all the time.
video on social media. Someone's like, God, if you're real, send a lightning bolt.
And
And
then
then
there was this-
the
yeah.
lightning bolt hit. I was like, dude,
Oh.
come on now.
You better be careful what you ask for.
That might be a sign. Yeah, be careful what you ask for.
Because
Yeah.
you're going to get it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it the way you want it, though.
He still got that intense look on his face, so I don't
It's
think
all
you're
right.
alive. Yeah, look at that. We're rolling
From the
again?
beginning? All right.
Awesome.
So, whoop-de-whoop, whoop, whoop, whoop.
So I guess God's been preparing me for this moment my whole life, right? 20 years active addiction. I lost both my parents to AIDS from heroin use, 2 grandmothers, alcoholism, grandfather heroin, uncle heroin. From the last 20 years, he's been preparing me for this moment because of all the perseverance and persistence it takes to be an addict, right? A lot of transferable skills to addicts to recovery. It's just, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Once I was able to start seeing things differently, my perception of reality has changed. And those skills that it took to be an addict, because Bill Gates said it, if you ran your business like addicts run their addiction, you'll be very successful, right? So we already have all the qualities and the tools, so it's been preparing me for this moment. And my lived experience, we think that, our active addiction is this darkness and this thing that we want to forget. When I was in treatment, I turned my addiction into an investment. When I was in treatment, I had plenty of time to study who I am in that darkness. So my recovery is not about preventing anything. My recovery is, if I have to compare it to anyone, it would be like Floyd Mayweather. I'm a counterpuncher. That's what my recovery is. I allow the negative to occur. I don't try to overcome the negative. I replace the negative, right? So I want the devil to show himself at certain moments, because whenever I don't think like God's speaking to me, God uses the devil to let me know that he's in my life, because the devil can only tempt you if you're not close enough to God. So when I'm being tempted by the devil, he's actually telling me, no, you're supposed to go this way to get me a blessing. So to me, the devil's necessity in the whole scheme of things is he's my path to heaven by overcoming his temptation. By not giving in to him, I'm able to now follow through Christ. So everything's preparing. It's a great opportunity to be able to look at something that you thought was detriment to your character and actually be able to turn it into a positive for society, right?
Amen.
Because of what we've been through, we know what it's like to not have anything. We know what it's like to not see the light at the end of the tunnel. In the world that we're living in right now, we're divided by petty differences: skin color, religion, pronouns, sexual orientation. If you ever came to a recovery meeting, you got all of that in one place, right? And because we could work together for one common goal, like-minded people, in my opinion, don't mean we have to agree. Like-minded means we're striving for the same thing, right? So if you're striving to be the best version of you and me, we're like-minded. We don't have to do it the same way. We don't have to look the same way. We don't have to talk the same way. But I think we're chosen because we could look beyond those petty differences.
Yeah.
I think what's happening in society is the Great Awakening. And I do think us addicts are that next Jesus revolution. Instead of the hippies, it's going to be the bikers. It's going to be the ones with the piercings and the tattoos on their face, because God will take the unqualified and make them qualified.
Amen. Yeah. Now, but tell me about,
Well put.
because to make that shift, right, and to find that confidence and to find that ability, because a lot of us, we stop using, but that shame and that guilt, right, of what we've done and what we lived in the past, and that voice in our head that says, who am I to talk about this, or to recover out loud and to let people know that there is hope. Was there a process for you internally that you had to battle through with that, or was there a moment where it clicked for you?
I think this last time going back into treatment, the humility that I had to take going back to a place where, quote unquote, I was the man at, right?
Yeah.
I was running groups as a client. So I left premature, and people were like, don't leave. And I left, and I had to humble myself and come back, because I had started the whole inspire thing, and then it went dark when I relapsed. But going back into treatment and that humility, I guess, was the beginning of it. But what's really helped me was my mother's death. Right, so my father passed away. That was the excuse to ruin my life. My mother passed away. She became the reason I'll never pick up again. When I realized that I was able to use my mother's death like that, something clicked in my head and I wasn't following God. It was like the way I'm viewing things is the way I'm perceiving them. So I started to really dig deep into the duality of life. There's no failure without success. There's no light without dark. There's no winning without losing. I started to see the relationship, and the way I like to explain is, if I ask you what came first, the chicken or the egg, it's not to know what came first, in my opinion. It's to show the relationship. No chicken without the egg. There's no egg without the chicken. So what I started to realize is, if I had one present in my life, there's something in there that I could turn around in my mind to make it the other way. So the pain into the joy, the sadness into the happiness. Not realizing that it was God and Jesus walking with me the whole time. Now that I read the Bible and I sit on Scripture, that's all it is. It's like we're promised long suffering because of our flesh. The only way to kill the ego is to suffer, right? So if I truly believe these words and I'm reading, I'm also promised a whole bunch of other great stuff besides just the long suffering.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I feel like I know exactly what you mean. And it's a weird position to be in, because when you think of loss and grief and stuff like that, that's it. This tragedy, you know what I mean? But the perspective I was sober when my sister passed away. I had a lot of loss. My sister and my brother passed away, and it was just like, I definitely wish that never happened, right? But the perspective that came from that, for me personally, was such spiritual growth, and it was such a like, I mean, it was like there's a piece of that I can't deny that was very beautiful to me personally because of how I reacted to it. Like what position did that put me in? You know, at this time, instead of being a burden and making that whole situation worse, I was able to be helpful to my mom, to friends and family. You know, I was able to share that grieving process instead of being an addict and like making everything 10 times worse, not even being there, being locked up, using or stuff like that. And it also, you know, that loss really tightened my relationship with God because like my belief system got strong now because, you know, I know, you know what I'm saying? I know that my brother and sister are, you know, not just gone. You know what I mean? So I got to sit on these words that I've learned through my higher power, and like my faith is built through that. I stand on that today. You know what I mean? It's a big change. It's a big shift, you know, when you think of really bad times and how you react from them and how important it is to like when you get up from stuff like that. You know what I mean?
There's so much beauty in death for me because I speak to my parents more now than I ever did while they were alive, right? They walk with me in my heart. And the way I am able to look at death today, it's not the end of things, right? You know, to lose is to gain, you know, but it's not, the tears, everything for me is bittersweet because my parents never got to see this version of their son. My mother died while I was in treatment 3 weeks off the methadone, right? So like they never got to see this version, but I could easily use that as an excuse to use, or I could, you know, be happy that the reason they never gave up on me was because they knew this version of their son existed, right? And the pain and the tears for me brings them back to life. That pain that I'm feeling for them because they're not here, I'm actually bringing them into my life in that moment through my tears, through my pain. So I don't ever want the tears to stop. I don't ever want the pain, because when that stops, then they're really going to feel like they're gone, right? So it's I think, a way for us to reinvent our love for our loved ones, because you're never going to have enough time for your loved ones. You could be with them for 1,000 years. You lose them, you're still going to be upset.
If they're at 80.
Yep. So I
18,
focus on time spent rather than time I won't have. That would be selfish for me to look at the time I'm not going to have my parents. I had plenty of time with my parents, and I appreciate every moment I had with them.
And a lot of that is not when we're not getting high and we face hard things, right? And the value of going through it, and the value of feeling it, and that it creates a new relationship with yourself because you realize, oh, I can do hard things. You know, I can face this, or you know, I when I'm talking to someone who's just getting started and they go through something, and I ask them, did you think about drinking? No. Do you want to drink? No. I said, look at that.
Beautiful.
You just went through a horrible situation, and you didn't even think about drinking. You know, 6 months ago, you would have been set off the edge way before this.
That would have been it.
Right? And so when we're sober and we have to face this stuff, we're becoming human again, you know what I mean? We're becoming like real boys and girls, you know, instead of these marionette puppets, you know, little Pinocchios running around. And but that's hard. It's hard to see value in pain, right? It's hard to see that. It's hard to see, you know, but it is.
I think we see the value when we're using, because we use it as the excuse to get high.
Come on.
Right? So we're seeing the value in things. We're just seeing them under the wrong perspective, right? We know how to do everything we need to do. For me, addiction and recovery is very similar. The only difference is the spiritual foundation.
Wow.
Our choices come from a spiritual nature, right? I'm still living in the same world. Life is still unfair. I still have insecurities. I still have all these things I had in my active addiction. I just don't use it as an excuse to get high, because an excuse is a lie, and it only sounds good to the person making it, right? So, like, I don't make the excuses no more. Plus, you know, standing on a firm foundation of a belief system, perseverance through your trials and tribulations, you are given the crown of life, right? Self-confidence is our reputation with ourselves, right? So if you get through something, the confidence within inside yourself grows, because now you can count on yourself. The more we tell ourselves we can't do something, we're going to believe we can't do it, so we're going to get very confident that we can't do it. I started realizing that this is my problem, not the drug. I'm not an addict because I use drugs. I use drugs because I'm an addict. I could easily substitute drugs for something else.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to get to the root of the problem. The difference between being sober and clean and recovery. Sober and clean is the absence of a substance. Recovery is working on the problem.
Tell
me.
it.
So clean time doesn't equal recovery, in my opinion, right? They could go hand in hand, but just because you have X amount of time clean does not mean you're in recovery, right? So just seeing the value of everything.
Yeah.
I have struggles and I don't struggle today.
Yeah. When I got my 12-year, I said, it's not hard to get this 12-year chip. All you had to do is just not drink and don't do drugs.
That's it.
And you get one of these coins. But it's not representative of the quality of your life at all. So as we kind of land the plane, I love that we just got into the cosmos. And Andrea, how much of this have you gotten to witness from hanging out with Mike and this? Because we just went deep, right?
Yeah.
And what's that like for you to see that and to see that this exists and then there's communities all over the world like this?
Well, a couple of things. I'm listening to him talk, and a lot of times he'll use the relationship that we have, that I'm like his mom. Well, my daughter that I lost was addicted to alcohol. I've heard the talk, I've watched the walk. I watch him all the time. I didn't want a relationship like that in the beginning. I was scared to death of it. Because, see, I know him clean, and I only know the stories about him. I don't have all those hurts in our friendship of what happens on that flip side that you were talking about, being with your family.
Yeah.
And you were able to help
Yeah.
when you lost your brother and sister. So I'm familiar with both sides of that. And so it's beautiful watching him grow when you were talking to him, David, about that. Because, those first, when he was sending me those gazillion videos on my phone that wouldn't download, I could understand very little of what he was saying. When I could because he was talking so fast, right? And what I could understand was beautiful, and I had to think about some of it a little bit. But, he was just a million miles an hour, and he'll tell you himself, when he was using drugs, he could steal your drugs and help you look for them. He's a fast talker. And many people, when they listen to him, probably wonder, how does he have this gift? I do all of the time. Wonder how he has this gift to just make that all come out on cue,
so
right?
smooth.
But the difference
For real, I'm
is
serious. It's
exactly.
a gift, man.
But the other thing is that he's actually living that way. And so to watch him grow, walk the walk, but talk the talk, but walk the walk, is what he's doing. And so I love watching that. And I remember the first time going to a recovery event. We were in Las Vegas, and it wasn't Mike's event, but we were going to go meet at this recovery event, and he was going to introduce me to some of the recovery community. And I was talking to this beautiful young lady. My girlfriend and I were there talking to them, and she was an addict. She was in recovery, and she just looked like a sunshine. She looked like a giant sunlight, and she was so happy about being clean, right? And it brought us to tears, because in that moment, I heard my daughter say, just in my head, I didn't know you like these kind of people, Mom. And I thought, these kind of people, and however crazy that is, I thought, I wonder if that's how she felt when she was here, that she was a different kind of person than everyone else. And so it was rough. And it is sometimes to go. And I'll go sit over at Magic House, and I always leave feeling 100 times better than I did when I got there. I can be tired and want to go home before I get there, and it's uplifting. It's a community of people that are really there for each other. And it's not one way.
Yeah.
It's just the way, whatever works for them, and moving forward. And so I love watching who Mike is becoming, who he has become, all the changes along the way, right? When he hit that part where he was going to start following Jesus, right? I watched all that. And, I've had my foundation.
I was like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
I've had my foundation of faith, or I would not be standing today. So, there's some days I'm like, hey, I had my faith first. I didn't even know all that. And so, I'm listening to this, but I love it. And but from that flip side of a mom that had a kid that walked this path, I wish she would have been able to see what Mike sees today.
Mm.
But, and I think his family would be so extremely proud of him, and I think of those things too when he has another achievement. And some things that are achievements, you know, we all think of achievements as these huge things that everybody wants,
Yeah.
right? But some days I see little pieces and they seem so huge, right?
Yeah.
Because I know they were for him.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be a really big thing. So I love watching it.
Yeah, and you know, everyone wants to be called to the pulpit. No one wants to be called to the parking team. You know, but the ministry is there in the parking team too, Blair. You know, and so I feel like while we're here, I just want to talk a little bit about Set Free. So when I saw you getting involved with Set Free, I was just like a little envious because I'm like, I miss my Set Free family. You know, and Pastor Mike, who. I got when in '98 when I met Jesus, I got involved in Set Free Bakersfield, Pastor Mike Salazar, and that was my real first church experience, you know, and so near and dear to my heart because other than the rooms of recovery, I had never been in a community that was so accepting, loving, and but not like permissive, like you could just like there was something about it that made me want to be better, right? It was like the opposite. It was like by them accepting me for who I was, I felt like I was worthy of love. I was worthy to serve. I was worthy to you know, lead the little break dance team in the church, you know. And so Set Free is like one of those really special places for me. And when I saw that, I was just so, you know, so blessed. And I'm going to California at the end of this month, and every time I go to Bakersfield, my joy is to go sit with Pastor Mike and sit and talk to him. And I get so renewed just from that man's simple view of life, right? And life with Christ. And I'm a very heady, theological, and I get all in there. And then he just simplifies it, man, and it's just like a breath of fresh air. And so that's so cool that you got plugged into that community. And, you know, I can see the change, right, from that getting plugged into there.
Yes, set free is it's actually what it is. You get set free. Magic House is, you know, Set Free Anaheim, and what it's done is allowed me, like you said, because of the growth, is because they're loving me where I'm at, right? But when I make a mistake, you know, I'm loved with the direction that they give me, right? I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I'm not afraid to be myself. I'm not afraid to say something that maybe I shouldn't. I'm considered a baby Christian because I'm new in my faith. So just like any other baby, you're going to say things you're not supposed to say, right?
No.
But it's so great how you're loved where you're at. And, you know, we started calling ourselves gold diggers. Reason being is because everybody has a treasure inside of them. So we want to dig that treasure out of you. And people go, how are you going to dig it out? Just come and hang out with us. And it'll get dug out on its own.
I like that.
You know, Phil, you know, Pastor Phil Chief has given me the opportunity to basically speak every Sunday. You know, he don't let you know who's going to speak because he wants testimonies, not testaphonies. So he doesn't let you know you're going to speak, but it's like every week he's calling me up there to speak. And, you know, he didn't push me, you know, not cursing. He's like, yo, just read your Bible. It'll all get taken care of. And then when I told him I wanted to start speaking on the word, he was excited about it. So I'm in this transition of speaking where I'm uncomfortable because I'm sitting on the word and I'm still trying it to be me that makes you like what I'm saying when the word is powerful enough as it's written. I'm not fully there yet where I'm fully trusting that power of the word. I still think it has to be me. Like I want to hear the hand claps. I want to see the head nods. And, you know, my ego still wants to have a part in this. But, yeah, without the Magic House, I definitely wouldn't be as further as long on the road as I am now. So I'm indebted to, you know, Pastor Phil and Magic House. I miss them when I'm on these trips. You could ask Andrea, like, that's my home.
He's happy to go home.
That's my,
to see them.
you know, it's my family, you know, and, you know,
It looks like, it seems like
dynamics of a family is just the relationship that we have with each other, right? Blood doesn't make you, you know, it makes you relatives, right? Family is, you know, the love of the heart. And, you know, we're really looking to just start bringing everybody to our meeting because, you know, we say it's a little NA, a little AA, a lot of Jesus A, but it's more than just the recovery community from drugs. Everyone out here is in recovery. Everyone's trying to recover from something. The more and more, I think God is a physician, and I think the prescription he prescribes to us are each other.
Yeah.
Right? We're supposed to, this is why we all could experience pain, because we could identify and walk together. And everything that God creates works together. Ants build together, bees make honey together, birds flock together, lions hunt together. We're the only ones that we think we could do this without him. So I'm no longer going to do this on my own. I'm going to allow Jesus Christ to take the wheel.
Amen.
That's deep. I love that.
Yeah, and it's very appropriate as we're doing our first show here at Vision Warriors, which is a very similar community to Set Free, in the far as accepting you where you're at and helping you to grow and helping you to build in your faith and being okay if you're not on the same faith page, and as long as you're not your God, then we can move with that, right? And so this has been amazing. I want to make sure before I close, if anybody has any burning desires, anything you need to get off your chest before we close, something you want to say to the people out there who might hear this and might see this.
I would say that talking about fentanyl, I've talked and talked and talked. I'm sick of my own voice now, but you've got to take this opportunity right now, like right now. If you haven't had this discussion with your children or your family, or there's something that you can do it now. Don't wait. It can make a huge difference. We're at a crossroads right now. We've been talking about this quite some time. Some people don't know that, but we've been screaming from the rooftops for a long time here. I'm personally 5 years in. I have friends been on this road a little bit longer, losing people before. And we've got to do something. We've got to come together. People are vanishing before our eyes, and it's just getting worse. And so in this time where we have elections coming up and leaders that will be changing, look at them. Look at them and ask them what difference they're going to make. And we're the people of this country. We need some answers here, and we need to step up to the plate. It's time. The time of being complicit is over. We've let things get out of hand here, and so we need to come to the plate now. And I'd ask everybody to do that.
And, for me, this doesn't get fixed with the blame game. This doesn't get fixed with being controversial and argumentative. Like, we can't just blame law enforcement. We just can't blame the legislation. Like, as a community, as people, we need to now get on the front line. We all need to become one voice, right? Legislation's doing about fentanyl. Go to your local PTA, see if there's anything in the schools. Is there any events coming up? My message is always very clear. Which one should I look at? This one? My message is always very clear, especially to our recovery community. We are the secret weapon. We are the X factor. We're not picking up the drugs, robbing for the drugs, stealing for the drugs, and using the drugs. The demand goes down. At the same time, these stories that these kids need to hear, I honestly believe we are beyond the anonymous. We don't need to be anonymous no more. By being anonymous, these kids are not hearing stories that they need to hear that might prevent them from picking up a drug. We are separate from society because of our addiction. If you are someone who has a position of power and you're in recovery, the more of us that come out and maybe take these hits in the beginning, we will offer opportunities for people to not die in silence, because the stigma will die the more and more we get louder and louder with our stories. And I'll close it with a quote that I read this morning, which hit me different. God said, "Love thy neighbor," so I obeyed, and I loved myself.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Thank you, God. David, do you have something?
Dave, were you here?
See,
When did you get here,
hey,
bro?
man,
Did Dave just
He's
get here?
blending into the background.
No, at the beginning, well, even before the show, we were talking about, like, I like that, we were talking about harm reduction in a little bit, and just really coming to the conclusion that it's like, because things can get divided very easily, and some people stand on this side of the fence, and, there's so much, and like, in such a, in a community that's really all looking to get better, it's like, it really is about putting as many tools in the toolbox as you can. I'm not going to be judgmental of how you do it. I'm just happy that you're doing it. You know what I mean? I just, I think it is a time for, people to like have that attitude of, this is a big thing. 200 people a day died in 2022 from this. They were poisoned.
Every
like
5
we've
minutes.
got to, like, this is a come together time where, there's not this like pity pat talk of like, oh no, I do it this way. This is not a long
Working
term.
against each
This
other.
is it. Like I'm tired of that, man. Like I really, and I do see progress. Like I do see progress because, from a very intimate point of view, I counsel a lot of teens, and a lot of times when we do group, we're just sitting around and we're just talking, and we knew they were pressed. Like, we ain't touching that stuff. Like, just to say that's like, whoa, that's growth, man. Like, to hear them speak. So there is that awareness, and it's from people like you guys and people like this show, man, that put that information out there, like, on a level. Like, you guys are doing it. Like, I wish we should like say something about that, right? Well, they're all like, these two are all over the world with this.
Yeah.
Like, they're all over the country and like talking to a lot of different audiences that won't, normally wouldn't hear this message, know nothing about it. And I just appreciate you guys, and like this, like you have like a tireless effort. Like, every time I see you guys are moving. You know what I mean? Like, at the beaches, in the cities, in the mountains. I'm like, damn, Mike is all over the place. But there's a definite reason behind that, and you guys are making powerful moves, and I think it's making a definite impact on our community, man. For
Thank
real.
you.
Thank you.
Amen. Well, thank you for listening to The Most High Show. If you made it this far and you need some help, you're worthy of recovery, reach out, contact at The Most High Show. Also, if you've made it this far and you email me, I'm going to send you a hat, and I'll customize the hat. I'll put something on the bill. So if you made it this far, email me. And, yeah, there it is. So thank you for listening, and thank you to all the donors who make this show possible. Thank you to Vision Warriors for letting us host here. Thank you for the
Thanks, Vision Warriors.
in-studio audience who hung out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you to Kale, and we'll see you next time. Peace.